In one of my previous videos where I talk about arranging your training week, I suggest that you might consider tagging some structured intervals onto one of your Zone 2 endurance rides. But are these best done at the beginning of the ride or at the end? Why not stick around to find out the answer? So the answer to the question as to whether it's best to do intervals at the start or at the end of a Zone 2 endurance ride is, it depends. Just to be clear, in this video we are looking at tacking intervals onto an endurance ride and not those rides where you might be heading out to do some structured training outdoors instead of indoors on the static trainer. Nor are we going to go into the nature or type of interval, but just focus on the factors that will dictate whereabouts you place them on your endurance ride. When I build workouts which utilise intervals in different training zones, then in general I will have the athletes do the harder ones first whilst they are fresh, in order to ensure a consistent high quality of execution. Having said that, there might be times, such as mimicking a race scenario, where I might place the harder interval blocks towards the end of the session, but when I'm looking to build fitness and capacity, as opposed to specificity or simulating a race situation, I personally favour placing them at the start. And that principle feeds into where best to place intervals that have been added onto your endurance ride. The first question or consideration is, what is the main focus of your endurance ride? Is the primary objective to work on your fat oxidation or to work on muscular endurance? Having answered that question, the next one to consider is how long is the ride? Is it a shortish one of less than 2 hours or a longer one in the 3 to 4 hour range? So, armed with these two bits of information, you can then make an informed decision as to where best to place your intervals. And remember that training doesn't always have to equate to hard. It is defined by the session you are doing, having clear objectives and desired outcomes, as well as a place within a structured plan. It's always good not to lose sight of those and get dragged into what could be unproductive training. Let's start off with an endurance ride where the main objective is fat oxidation. To ensure that you stay below the lower lactate turning point, you're mainly going to be cycling around mid-zone 2. If you recall, in a previous video I mentioned that sustained pushes above your FTP will introduce lactate into the system, which can take as long as 20 minutes to clear. In order to clear it, your body utilises it as a fuel, and because there is less processing required by your body to do that, it will be utilised in preference to fats and carbs whilst it is available. Because of that, if your fat oxidation ride is a short one of 2 hours or less, then I'd suggest doing the intervals at the end so that you accrue the maximum amount of time working on fat oxidation. But if your fat oxidation ride is a longer one, say 3 to 4 hours, then you can do the intervals at the start whilst you're still fresh. Yes, you will then spend a bit of time at the start of the Zone 2 part clearing the build-up of the lactate, but given the length of the ride, you'll still have plenty of time to benefit from operating below LT1, as well as having executed your intervals as prescribed. But what if the focus of your Zone 2 ride is more towards developing muscular endurance, where you'll be probably pushing towards the upper end of the Zone 2 range, or maybe including some extended Zone 3 pushes within a predominantly mid-Zone 2 ride? In this instance, if it is a shortish one of less than 2 hours, then I'd suggest putting the intervals at the start, so getting them done with the focus on quality of execution. It will also mean that you're going into the remainder of the ride with slightly more fatigue in the legs, which will further enhance the development of muscular endurance in the limited time that you've got remaining. If, however, the muscular endurance ride is a longer one, then you not only want to be going into that less cooked than you would be if you did the intervals at the start, but by tacking them on at the end, you can partially mimic a race situation. Finally, some of you may be wondering why not do them in the middle of the ride. The issue there is that you'll be really compromising your fat oxidation section of the ride by effectively cutting it into two halves, where a single longer block is far more beneficial. So, I hope that this video has given you some easy to understand guidance to follow if you do decide to add intervals to one of your endurance focus rides, and that you will now make use of what you've learned to make further improvements to your own training. If you have enjoyed this video, then please remember to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you know of a friend whose training would also benefit from this video, then please share it with them as well. All that is left for me to say is thank you for watching, and remember to embrace the process to enjoy the ride. Take care. Goodbye.